at Mariners Church, and please remain standing for that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Almighty God, we have to start with incredible gratitude for the city that we live in, the city that we work in, the city that we raise our families in. We have such incredible schools. We have wonderful public officials. We have a great police department and fire department. God, there is no good thing that you have withheld from us, and so we are grateful. Thank you for this city council meeting. Thank you that we are ruled with wisdom and with integrity. God, may it continue to be so. And so we thank you for our great city. We thank you for the blessings that we have. And we pray that you would continue to shine down upon us. Not so that we could just enjoy our city, but God, that we could give to others as well. We thank you. Amen.
Thank you. May we have a roll call once again?
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
All right, and so once again, we will postpone closed session report, and we'll go into presentations. Unveiling of the new city seal. We have staff comments, or are we going to go right to our centennial mayor, Mayor Don Webb?
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. It's been a while since I've had an opportunity to speak before you, but tonight it's my pleasure to unveil a modern rendition of our official city seal. But first, you need a little history. The city of Newport Beach was incorporated on September 1st, 1906, and for the first 50 years of its existence, the city seal that's shown up there was the one that was used. It has breakers on the ocean and below some clouds, and it served well for the first 50 years. In 1956, when they published the 50 Golden Years, which is a book memorializing, so to speak, the first 50 years, this is the city seal that was used. It was not an official city seal. However, it's one which has sailboats, seagulls, an anchor encircled by a life preserver. And this seal brought out the recreational and nautical qualities that our community felt was important up to that time frame. Then city manager Bob Shelton met with his friend, an artist named Rex Brandt, and possibly over a beer or two, and the two of them discussed the need for a new city seal. On May 18th, 1957, the council actually commissioned Mr. Brandt to put together an official design, and his charge was modify this unofficial city seal that we just showed by simplifying it, modernizing it, deleting the anchor, and including two fish. The Balboa Angling Society had requested albacore be shown, and taking an outline that was different from the life ring. His design was approved by the City Council, that's Rex Brandt's design, in July of 1957, and was described as being circular, containing a center scene depicting sailboats, fish, and ocean waters, and having the words City of Newport Beach surrounded by the scene. Now, I would like to have Bob Shelton go up and do the honors of actually unveiling this. Bob is a former city manager and council member, and 57 years ago worked on creating what you're about to see. Let's see if we can go without hitch, I hope. Go ahead and pull. Pull to the side. Keep going. There we go. It worked. In explanation of the city seal, the ripples in the water down in the bottom quadrant there symbolize the wave action on the ocean front. Of course, you have the two albacore. And the sailboats portray the predominantly seashore recreational area and yachting resort. The outer circle surrounding by the seal suggests the four cardinal points of the compass, which encompasses this nautical theme for the community. Now we have an official city seal set up for the city of Newport Beach in its council chambers. During the last year, I've worked with the city council, city staff, and designers to replicate and standardize the seal design so that so this official seal can be used and we can use it later on in a lot of other places, I hope. I'd like to thank Dave Kiff and Steve Batum and my wife for sewing up the, well, my wife sewed up the sheet that we just pulled down. And special thanks to Bob Shelton for his part in creating the seal 57 years ago. And he's indicated that he'd like to say at least one or two words. And
All right.
Don, just one question before you leave. Are you sure that's the right shade of yellow?
actually, I do have the paint chip, and we can hold it up next to it if you'd like to try.
There's been some agony and agonizing over what's official in the way of those colors. But I would just simply like to add my thanks and appreciation to Don Webb for his persistence in making this happen, and to the council for your acquiescence, I might say initially, and maybe your eventual agreement to do this, to bring this about. I think this is wonderful to have an authentic exhibit of the official seal. And I'm pleased to say, and I often reflect on this, that the initial idea grew out of an informal meeting in my living room in 1957 in Corona del Mar when Rex was there as a guest and a friend. And somebody in the room said, you know, we ought to have a new city seal. And Rex said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. But from there to now, he volunteered to design it and donated his services for what you see. He's a world-renowned artist, and this is a world-renowned city with a world-renowned seal. It's beautiful. It's a work of art. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Don, I think your tenacity is to be rewarded. I'm certainly looking forward to my volume of email dropping.
I'll try.
Other council remarks?
Yeah, just one. I suppose it's nice, Bob, that you didn't have to worry about the Brown Act in 1957 when you made that momentous decision for the city. We might still be discussing what the seal would look like otherwise. Thanks.
I just know how much work Don put into this, the research, that trying to find out what really was the right one. And he showed me, I saw at least probably a dozen iterations of it. So how you decided what the real accurate one, really accurate one was, I don't know, but thank you for doing it.
All right. Then we will move on. We have two presentations now from, and thank you, Don, once again. We have two presentations from Southern California Edison, which we're going to incorporate into one. So, Janelle, please.
I thought I'd save you a little bit of time and prevent the eyes from kind of glazing over. Good evening, Mayor Hill, members of the council, city staff. My name is Janelle Gotches. I'm a Southern California Edison in Public Affairs, and Mr. Bernard Adebayo Ige. Did I get it? Probably the most difficult last name. He's with Southern California Edison as well in our Energy Leader Partnership. He's the one that helps to streamline the process and make sure that the projects that the city of Newport Beach adopts move forward in a manner that's streamlined and you can get your incentives and move forward with your next project. So tonight, we're celebrating the City of Newport Beach's energy efficiency accomplishments. Newport Beach, for those that do not know, joined the partnership in September 2011, and I have to say the city really hit the pavement running. I'm pleased to congratulate the city as it makes an important advancement and receives Southern California Edison's Energy Leader Partnership Gold Award. As the nation's leader in energy efficiency, SCE appreciates the efforts of leading cities and communities in our service territory who participate in our programs and work with us to save energy and costs and help the environment. SCE's local government partnerships assist cities by helping to identify and act on opportunities for energy efficiency and integrated demand-side management solutions in municipal facilities, and support alignment with California's long-term energy efficiency strategic plan. The City of Newport Beach has demonstrated excellence on this front, using a comprehensive approach to undertaking projects that ranged from large to small and using a variety of measures. From 2011 to 2013, the City of Newport Beach achieved more than 2,156,828 in kilowatt-hour savings. That's a lot. Enough to power 306 homes for 1 year. Some of the projects you adopted were optimizing your street lighting system, which accounts for a large portion of the energy use in the city, retrofitting water pumps with variable frequency drives, completing a savings by design project at the Civic Center, participating in direct install for the city's smaller facilities, which were no cost to the city for energy upgrades. The city also demonstrated leadership in your community by developing and adopting an energy action plan last year. Some of the city's creative community outreach efforts included Race for the Cure, utility bill inserts, and energy websites to promote energy efficiency and sustainability in the community. The city also leveraged SCE strategic planning funds to provide lead training to city staff and created an enterprise energy management information system, it's also called EMIS, that aggregates utility data. So what does this all equate to? Through your projects, the City of Newport Beach removed the equivalent of 188 cars from the road, thus eliminating 978 metric tons of carbon emissions. Energy efficiency installations at facilities enabled the city to earn more than $152,531 in rebate incentives in 2013, and this resulted in a savings of just over 1.2 million in kilowatt hours and $16,247 in electricity expenses per year. So looking ahead, the city is now in the process of completing a project that will save 593,000 additional kilowatt hours of electricity, enough to power 84 homes for 1 year. And so tonight, congratulations are indeed in order. SCE is proud of the city for its commitment to the future of clean energy in California and your achievement in the gold level status, especially compared to a lot of the cities that have entered into the partnership throughout our service territory. It gives me great pleasure to present the Energy Leader Partnership Gold Award and a check, although it may be fake right now, we do have the real one for you, and $152,000 in rebates to the City of Newport Beach in recognition for your outstanding energy efficiency achievements. These accomplishments were made possible by the hard work of your staff, and we want to recognize those key individuals along with Mayor Hill. Again, congratulations and a job well done.
Thank you.
Take a picture? Sure, yeah.
Well, thank you, Southern California Edison. I think this is something that the city can be very proud of. I think it obviously is a statement of the success of our Public Works Department in good planning and good execution, and we're very proud of that. So thank you to staff, and thank you for Edison. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on now to Arbor Day presentation by the Rotary Club of Newport Beach.
Good evening. I am Dr. Jerry Clemmer. I'm the chairperson of Arbor Day activities this year. And during the last week, our club handed out to third graders in the Newport Mesa School District approximately 2,500 trees. We've been doing this for 45 years. And to date, we have handed out over 100,000 trees. This year, our activities for the featured school was East Bluff Elementary School, where we did a joint effort with the city of Newport Beach. It was extremely successful, and we appreciate your cooperation. This year's tree is the golden truffle, which you have a small seedling in front of you. This is a beautiful tree. It grows to 15, 25 feet. Its blossoms look like an inverted golden trumpet. Quite handsome. As always, the Newport Balboa Rotary is here to serve the community, and we appreciate your cooperation. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I love getting the trees, but usually they're large trees, and we have small yards. And I'm just thinking in the future it would be nice. I kept in a pot for as long as I could, and then finally I didn't like, what am I going to do with it? I can't put it in my yard because I don't have any room.
You got to have friends or relatives.
Well, I don't. They all live in even smaller lots sometimes. So you might at times think of, for at least our area, some smaller versions even. They still produce chlorophyll and all that.
Point well taken. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, notice to the public.
The city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the council. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium. The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or set them in the silent mode. Now is the time for City Council announcements or matters which council members would like placed on a future agenda.
Councilwoman Daigle.
Yes, we're having a drought this year, and I went up to SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, and they had as one of its speakers William Croyle, who is the point person for this year's drought. Our snowpack is down about 20% of what it should be. We're the third year into this drought, and what's important to consider is that our deficit periods keep going lower and lower. The state is, of course, planning with regards to foundational issues, climate change, supply loss, and growing demand. With respect to the current actions, there was some drought legislation passed. The governor is actively involved with managing this issue on a daily basis. There's all hands on deck meetings, and they've made transfers easier. That's something they're really promoting. There's been drought legislation. They're really encouraging partnerships with local cities and local jurisdictions. And to that end, I noticed item 6 in our agenda. This is our third time that we will probably successfully receive a grant for water use efficiencies. So thanks to our staff for keeping those grants going. This time, though, as Mr. Croyle pointed out, agriculture is going to take a hit. And of course, for those of you that have read Cadillac Desert, that includes the famous almond trees. In terms of the future, there's a lot of discussion about stormwater and where that's going and MS4 permits. But clearly, transfers are going to be part of our future. We're living in a world of haves and have-nots. And when it comes to water, the haves are the upper Mississippi, places like Minnesota, and the have-nots are us. So that's going to be a big part of our future in terms of transfers and conveyance. So it's a very interesting discussion, and the state's really trying to be proactive about this problem. So thank you.
Councilman Hunt.
Two quick announcements. There is a meeting of the Balboa Village Advisory Committee tomorrow afternoon at Explore Ocean down in Balboa Village at 4 p.m. We're going to be discussing the bicycle master plan and how it might be coordinated with the revitalization effort for the village. And then we'll be looking at scopes of work for two very important components of our work plan for this year, one of which is design guidelines for the village, and the other of which is streetscape improvements in the wayfinding sign program. So that'll be a very good meeting to help move our agenda forward for the village. And then secondly, on March the 19th at 4 p.m., there will be a meeting of the Tidelands Governance Committee. That will be held in the community room right next door here to the council chambers, 4 p.m. March 19th, and the agenda for that will be out shortly. Thanks.
Councilman Curry.
It's March in the United States, and like it's been every year for the past almost 150 years, that means it's time for baseball. And I was very privileged to represent the City Council at the opening day of Little League on Saturday. We had several hundred young people out ready to start the season in their uniforms and really enjoying the quality of the fields that we have in Newport Beach to support this great endeavor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gardner.
Just to tag on to what Councilwoman Daigle was talking about, we in Orange County are very fortunate that we had such far-seeing people working on our groundwater replenishment system, and more areas need to do that if we're going to survive on the water supply that we have. As far as upcoming events, on Thursday, March 13th, there are two meetings at 3 o'clock, the Coastal Water Quality Tidelands Committee meeting at 3 o'clock in Newport Coast Room, and at 5 o'clock, the Arts Commission will be meeting at the Friends Room of the library.
Thank you. Councilman Petros.
Yes, Mayor Hill. On the 25th of February, I had the pleasure and honor of visiting with one Patrick Paragas. You might not know of him yet, but guarantee it you will. Patrick is an 8th grader at Corona Del Mar Middle School, and he had an earful for me of ideas and thoughts that would improve Newport Beach, and it really got me going. I would encourage Patrick, if you're listening, thank you. He has contributed to our Bike Master Plan, and I would encourage all young people to realize that this city is yours. And whether or not you're tall enough or old enough to pull that lever, you still are invested in this community, and we want to hear from you. Please reach out to us. This last Saturday, we did a whirlwind tour of District 2, starting at Cliff Drive Park. For those who don't know, we are undergoing a significant renovation of Cliff Drive Park. All of the dead undergrowth and landscaping has been removed. The irrigation is going in, and I am most proud of the fact that the plant palette and the vision for the park has really germinated from the community, and the community around the Heights has put together the plan for their Cliff Drive Park. It was an amazing and wonderful process. I would really like to thank everybody there, most notably Bonnie and Brian Jeanette and Tom Ash for their volunteer service in that, but really everybody in the Heights, you should be commended. And then finally, I say it once, I'll say it again, the folks in Newport Shores know how to throw a party. If you're looking for one of the best barbecues or potlucks, you need go no further than Newport Shores. So it was a very busy weekend, and I want to thank all my friends and the residents of Newport Beach for a wonderful weekend.
Councilman Selledge.
Just an update to my report of last meeting on the sculpture exhibition. The submittals closed March the 28th, and we received 260 sculpture submittals by 170 artists. There's going to be selecting 10 pieces with 3 alternates by the Arts Commission, and from what I'm hearing, the first submittals they looked at are very good. And I think they're talking about maybe around September the 13th to have the unveiling of the sculptures officially. And then last Thursday, I took the place of the mayor at the Arbor Day celebration at East Bluff Elementary School with the third graders, and they put on a little performance that was both entertaining and informative, and handed out the trees and presented a proclamation by the mayor to the principal of the school.
Thank you. I have one brief report. Last Friday afternoon, I had the opportunity of participating in the fire department's graduation ceremony of 3 new firemen from their 4-week fire training academy. I'll probably bumble their names, but Kendall Fudham, Nick, say it again? Girakos, and Tim Hyde, 3 very proud new members of our fire department. An impressive and important ceremony for an impressive and important group. And with that, we will go to public comments on the consent calendar.
Public comments are invited on consent calendar items 1 through 11. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. To the extent that any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
All right, Councilwoman Gardner, do you have any items to remove from the consent calendar?
Number 5.
Petros?
No, I do not.
Selledge?
None.
Daigle? Ken?
And none.
Curry? And I have none. I would now invite public comments for items 1 through 4 and 6 through 11 on the consent calendar. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on any of those items?
Would be regarding the parking on 16th.
If we
That's
could,
number 5. I pulled it.
that's number 5. That was pulled, so you'll have a chance to speak directly on that one. That's quite all right. Anybody, any other individual like to make public comments on items 1 through 4 or 6 through 11?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I just want to note that we did give you a late handout on item 8 that has a balance on the ongoing budget for Raynham Park, if you have any questions.
Thank you. All right, a motion would be appropriate.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the consent calendar items 1 through 11 with the exception of item number 5.
Please vote. No.
Hang on one moment. There we go. Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance titles. For item 3, ordinance number 2014-5, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending Chapter 10.32 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code regarding sound amplification permits. And item 4, ordinance number 2014-6, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach approving zoning code amendment number CA 2012-006 for zoning designation changes and an increase in the development limit for the Newport Harbor Yacht Club property located at 720 West Bay Avenue.
Is there anyone that has not voted?
Save and vote. With that, the motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
It's like Chicago, we get to vote often. All right, item number 5. Councilman Gardner.
I was puzzled by this. There's obviously something I'm not understanding. That, reading it, that there is a problem with the parking for the businesses. Right now, there's 2-hour parking. Well, so we want to remove the 2-hour parking and just let you park as long as you want. How does that help businesses? Usually businesses, that seems to me to invite employees to park there instead of customers, and everybody else that they're complaining about is going to be parking there. How does that help the businesses?
Yes, thank you very much. Let me see if I can explain this a little bit. We looked at this. This came to our attention from a business owner who actually lives in the area that's not 2-hour parking. He's on 16th Street between Monrovia and Babcock. And we had some old faded out signs there, and when the signs were reinstalled, per the police department recommendation, the community had some issues on it, and we did some research of how this began. Back in 1971, there was a 2-hour parking limit put in between Babcock and Placentia, and we don't know the reason for that. We're guessing that at some point there was some use up there, commercial use, that was causing a parking restriction. So, not knowing that, staff went back and looked at what makes sense here. Would it make sense to continue that 2-hour parking? What the problem is happening is that if you look at that section of 2-hour parking, those folks are actually moving over to the section between Monrovia and Babcock and parking all day in front of the other businesses. So when staff looked at this, we felt like if we remove the 2-hour parking, it should go back to a normal commercial parking district where you'll have enough parking open for the various folks. There will be people that park there all day, but the people won't be moving a block over to park all day and causing problems in front of the existing businesses while the 2-hour remains open.
You feel confident that we're not just, I mean, would it make sense to make both areas 2 hours? So we're not just having two areas with no parking for businesses because everybody's parking there all day long.
That was the other option staff looked at. They didn't think there was enough parking constraint in that area. There's enough free parking, they think, and on-site that if they remove it, they think it'll balance out. If it becomes a problem, we could come back and make the whole area 2-hour parking. We have to do a little more depth study on it.
Any comments from council? And I'd like to open it for the public. Anyone from the public like to speak on item number 5? And if you could start by giving us your name, please.
Yes,
That would be
Roger
great.
McGregor. I own McGregor Yacht Corporation. I face on 16th, Babcock, and Placentia. And after 40 years of watching that parking show there, it's a mess, and it's getting worse by the minute. The people that are parking there generally are employees. The 2-hour thing is being widely disregarded. Both ends of Babcock, where they allow 2-hour, where they allow 8-hour, it's the same, full. If you drive around there, any of the blocks in that street, Production, 16th, up north, Babcock, it's full all the time. There's no room for customers. I'm lucky. I have a big plant. I've got a lot of excess parking, so I don't have a problem myself, but my neighbors are getting killed by this thing. And it's going to get worse because Vivanti is now renting out, and this is a really nice first-class luxury old folks home back there, and they have the room for about 250 people. They're about 20% full. Their parking lots are about 80% empty. So you can picture what happens when the next 200 people show up, many with cars. I don't have a solution for it. I'm not sure what to do at this point. I would recommend code enforcement, for one thing, to make sure the businesses are using their space for parking and not for whatever beside parking. And most businesses try and get away with as much as they can. The other thing is signs. The signs are very tiny. Nobody really knows it's a 2-hour. In fact, I wasn't aware for years there was a 2-hour parking on that thing, and I'm on there every day of the week. At any rate, I have no recommendation. I'm not getting hurt by it personally, but the situation is worse. It's getting worse, and the Vivanti thing is going to make it a major problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming to comment.
This just doesn't seem like, to me, like the solution. I would suggest that, based on what he said, I mean, it's just a ton of traffic, that we go to try the 2-hour extend it, but have some enforcement and see if that does anything to encourage the businesses to figure out where their employees should park, for example, and provide room for customers. That's critical for the businesses, I would think.
We could look a little further at that. The problem that you'll find if you add 2 hour further down the street is you're just going to displace the parking. On that part of the street, people are parking all day long, so they're going to try to go somewhere else. It's kind of a difficult area because borderline's Costa Mesa right there, and they've got some zoning issues along with ours. But we'd be open to any recommendations if you think. This is just the best solution we thought now.
I've got a great solution. We do it, so we push it all into Costa Mesa. I'm just kidding, Costa Mesa, just kidding.
Have we made any attempt to ask the businesses what they would prefer?
We actually did a survey, and the results were mixed. We had people saying get rid of it, said extend it. There wasn't enough
was no
one direction
clear-cut-
either way. So it was more of an analysis by the traffic staff to say, you know what, the best solution might be to try removing, because we can't find out why it was put there in the first place. There's no record of that. And it is causing a displacement of parking from one neighborhood, one block over to the next block. And we do actually have one business owner that is on the next block who's affected, one of our residents who's saying, I can't, my customers can't park because all the folks who are next door move over to mine because it's all-day parking.
Mayor Hill. First, I just want to acknowledge that Mr. McGregor is here. You are a legend in the yachting world, and I'm glad that you're in our town. I think that this is actually the start of a very appropriate and prudent step. Remove the restrictions so that we can see what the steady state conditions are after everything settles down and we see where people want to go and exact code enforcement in the area. Then we'll have an understanding of what the real issue is, and then we can fine-tune whatever the result, whatever the proper enforcement is, whether it be along 16th, whether it be on Babcock, whether it be just general code enforcement on the individual parcels. But I think by removing this, letting it go to what people would normally want to do, then we can see what their normal behavior would be and modify it at that point.
All right, is there any other member of the public that would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council then. Pleasure of the council. Motion?
Move the item.
I'll second.
All right. Please vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Public comments on non-agenda items?
Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Are there any members of the public that would like to make comment on non-agenda items?
Mayor Hill and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. The residential lifestyle in Newport Beach has long faced 2 threats. One of those is the airport, which, far-fetched as it may seem, has the power to turn Newport Beach into another surf ridge, which is the name of a former upscale oceanfront community that was obliterated by the expansion of LAX. The other threat is the development pressure that seeks to turn us into another Miami Beach or Atlantic City, a style that might even welcome jets flying over us, as it would add to the ambience. Over the years, various efforts have been made to protect our residential lifestyle, including the use of the Environmental Quality Affairs Committee since 1988 to review and criticize the environmental impact reports prepared for major proposed developments, which was supplemented in 2000 by the voter-enacted Green Light Amendment to the City Charter, whose intended purpose was to give residents a chance to say yes or no at the ballot box to each development exceeding a certain size. An earlier City Council found a way to short-circuit the intent of Green Light by wrapping a host of unrelated major development proposals into a single, irrevocable yes-no green light vote. In 2006, and this council
recently relegated EQUAC to a status where it reviews EIRs only if you direct them to. 8 years after the 2006 update, we seem to have come up against the allowable development limits in certain areas, such that developers like the Irvine Company, to add further intensity at Newport Center, would need to put their proposals on the ballot. Again, this council is going to try to circumvent the residents' very clear request to be able to vote on individual large projects by wrapping a host of proposals into a single yes-no green light vote on the November ballot. I mention these things because planning staff has announced that the environmental impact report for what is likely to be a very poorly understood ballot measure will be released tomorrow. Yet I've heard no direction from the council for EQUAC to read or comment on that EIR, and likewise the release of an EIR related to the proposed airport settlement agreement appears imminent, and again I've heard no charge to EQUAC to get ready for that. I believe residents are being deprived both of our clear request in the charter to be able to vote on individual major projects and your commitment that an extra set of citizens' eyes would review the potential impact of each of those on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we will move on to oral reports from the City Council, and that would be Councilwoman Gardner.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Petros.
Briefly, on the 3rd, the Bicycle Master Plan Oversight Committee met to go over the draft recommendations for that plan. It is a very ambitious plan for multimodalism in Newport Beach. Comments are still being sought by the public. Whether you cycle, whether you walk, rollerblade, or drive your car, we are asking that you please become involved. On the website is the link to the master plan map that will be available for comment and review until the 17th. Please provide your input to us so we can best reflect the wishes of the city. Thank you.
Councilman Selledge.
No reports this evening.
Councilwoman Daigle. That was a none. Councilman Henn.
No reports.
Councilman Curry.
No reports?
And I have no reports. We will move on to item number 12.
Mr. Mayor and council members, this is a return of an item you saw 2 weeks ago involving the Balboa Pier and an ability to move to pay stations in a different rate structure. It also affects the Corona Del Mar parking lot rates in arrears. So you have a staff report on this. I know Mr. Selledge has been engaged with us on discussing this. I'd certainly welcome new questions you might have. When we last left you, Mayor Pro Tem Selledge had asked to make sure that the Coastal Commission and its staff didn't see the signage program associated with the pay station effort as a door opener for them to somehow change our beach curfew, and we did get that. We had a meeting with them, we clarified that, they reaffirmed in writing that that is not their intent, not their wishes. And I know folks have various skepticism about that, but they did provide that to us in writing. So with that, I'd welcome your questions and comments.
Any comments by?
No, go ahead. I was just going to move the item.
All right.
I'll second it.
All right. The item has been moved and seconded. Any further?
I just have a couple of comments on it, though, before we actually vote on it. I did a little bit of checking after the last meeting, and the Coastal Commission is not actively asserting their claimed right to regulate beach hours, and apparently they're in some kind of negotiations with the City of LA over Venice Beach, and I suppose that eventually how they're going to deal with that will come out of those negotiations in terms of how they're going to deal with other beach cities. And then the other thing I brought up with staff is this pay by cell phone system, and the state is doing it in Huntington Beach, and I thought it might be a good idea to look at here, but I think the staff has convinced me that maybe we're not quite ready for it here, but I think it's going to come in the future.
Thank you. I would like to open this up for public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak on this item?
Thank you, Mayor Hill and members of the council. My name is Jim Mosier. I have a very brief comment. Part of the stated purpose of the resolution is to clarify our parking rate structure and how it is applied. One of the requests from the Coastal Commission was to clarify at the Balboa parking lot whether our holiday rates applied to an entire holiday weekend or just the holiday days. And the resolution you have before you on the back of the attachment A is very clear about that. It says the rates apply only on the actual holiday rates. To fix a typographical error that was in the other part related to the Corona Del Mar beach, there is no such clarification. And since, as you know, I travel by bicycle, I would not be using the parking lot on those holidays. So I'm just curious what our policy is, and if this truly clarifies our policy at the Corona Del Mar beach. Does the holiday rate apply as it now will at Balboa only on those days, or is it for the whole weekend? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals wishing to testify on this item?
It would only apply on the holiday day, so that one day of that holiday weekend, also at Corona Del Mar. Thank you.
Seeing no further comments, please vote.
With that, the motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Item number 13, Newport Beach Golf Course Telecommunication Facility Permit.
I need to recuse myself. I have an economic conflict.
All right. Councilwoman Daigle recusing herself. Staff, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Kim Brandt, Community Development Director. What you have on your agenda this evening is a request for a telecommunications facilities permit for a property located up in the Santa Ana Heights area of the community at the Newport Beach Golf Course. You may remember that back in January you did adopt a change to the municipal code where you shifted the existing telecom regulations to the zoning code. However, this application was currently in process at that time, and City Council did incorporate as part of their action that pending applications could be processed under the procedures that were existing at that time in Title 15. So I don't want to create any confusion, because under the new zoning regulations, this type of application would be reviewed by the Planning Commission. So with that introduction, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Planner Debbie Dressler, who will give an overview of the proposal.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Verizon Wireless is requesting a telecommunications permit to construct a 65-foot tall monopole at the Newport Beach Golf Course. The driving range portion of the site is the site location for the proposed monopole and is within the City of Newport Beach's jurisdiction. It is predominantly surrounded by residential development to the west and south, with a large portion of commercial east of the site. Per a closer look at the site, you can get a better perspective of the proposed location of the monopole and the equipment in relationship to the driving range and Mesa Drive. The proposed telecom facility is approximately 225 yards south of the golf mats. The monopole itself will replace the existing netting support post here in the corner. My mouse is showing it. At the southwest corner, and the support equipment will be just outside the netting, but within the existing chain link fencing area, approximately 30 feet from Mesa Drive. As proposed, the monopole is 65 feet tall and will function as a new netting support post that will house six 6-foot tall panel antennas and a 2-foot diameter microwave dish. The microwave dish is attached so it will face north away from Mesa Drive to reduce visibility from the public right-of-way. The support equipment is ground-mounted, located adjacent to the monopole, behind the netting, and enclosed behind a new 8-foot high slump stone wall. This is a view looking northwest from Mesa Drive. The monopole, as shown, will be painted brown in color to complement the color of the existing wooden support post. Additional ivy will be planted on the exterior of the proposed stone wall. Looking northeast, the monopole is 3 feet in diameter and conceals the panel antennas within the structure's exterior steel walls, creating a stealth design. The existing netting support posts are wooden and measure approximately 2 feet in diameter. When looking further northeast from Mesa, you can see how the monopole's location on the corner there allows the adjacent netting support post to continue that existing symmetrical visual balance as currently seen from Mesa Drive. And lastly, here's a view looking south from the interior of the driving range. Overall, the proposed telecom facility provides a stealth design, complements the existing netting support posts in height, color, and function. The northwest corner location reduces visibility and allows the symmetrical visual balance of the netting support posts, as I had previously stated. The project has been reviewed to ensure that there is no interference with the city's public safety radio equipment. And in addition to the standard conditions of approval, staff is requiring the pruning of 2 unkept palm trees that are currently on the subject property and which abut the public right-of-way along Mesa Drive. And you can see the photo of it. Staff recommends that the City Council approve the project, subject to the findings of the conditions of approval as provided. I am available to answer any questions you may have, as well as the applicant who is in the audience.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Just one, is there any concern about, I don't know how far most people can drive a golf ball, but a golf ball damaging sensitive equipment? Or is that just too far away that we don't have to worry about it unless Tiger comes out and works on his game?
Well, if it does, if Tiger does come, and it does hit, the pole itself is made of steel, so it would just bounce off and stay
so
within
the
the
sensitive
netting.
parts would be covered or protected in some way. Okay.
Correct.
My only comment is that the new pole looks a little more attractive to me than the existing poles.
I've got a question.
I will acknowledge that I've driven the area and looked at it and met with some of the residents from the area, and they have no problem with it whatsoever. So, and it looks like it actually will clean up that corner of the property considerably. So.
Were the vines going to go on the crib wall or the brown masonry wall? I was a little confused on that.
The new brown
The new
base-
wall.
New wall.
Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Check me on this. I believe Mr. Mosier actually had a good point in some of his comments about the size and scale of the attendant equipment. The recent faux eucalyptus that we approved on Irvine has much greater capacity for the devices, yet the area at the ground for all the boxes, cabinetry, and all that seems to be much smaller. What's the reason why this is as large as it is?
When the applicant first submitted, the area was actually larger, and they reduced it. And the reason for the size where it's angled is so that the sidewalls can actually attach to one of the existing posts versus where the netting is. So they kind of extended it larger. I did speak with the applicant asking if there was an opportunity for a co-location that an additional carrier can also utilize the location. That's something they could consider, absolutely.
Any further council comments? Open it to the public. Any from the public like to comment on this item?
Mayor Hill and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. City Manager Kiff has referred to Santa Ana Heights at one time as the city's poor stepchild. This pole is before you for your action tonight because in another part of the city it would be regarded as obtrusive. Those who are sensitive to cell phone sighting will have seen these elsewhere. There's a couple of poles very similar to this along Newport Boulevard north of 22nd Street where they have flags hanging on them. They don't make a very good imitation of a real flagpole because they are large in diameter, and I don't think the simulation entirely conveys that to you. In order to approve this, you have to make the two findings that are in the resolution. One, that this extraordinarily large and highly visible installation is necessary and that the alternatives have been identified and ruled out. And second, it is not going to be detrimental to nearby property owners and residents, and despite Mary Hill's informal survey, I'm not sure that they have been, the people on the far side of the golf course, which includes my niece and nephew, were formally notified that this was going to be before you tonight. And without asking them, some of them may or may not think that this is an improvement over what is there, and golf balls do go as far as Anniversary Lane, which is, I think, why those extensions were put on the top. If you read my written comments, there would seem to be a number of alternatives, even at the golf course site. One of them that I do not know why we're not pursuing. I guess because it's the poor stepchild, we don't mind having a new 60-foot wall, 60-foot long, 8-foot tall wall added along Mesa Drive, which is currently a fairly open view. I do not know why this could not be undergrounded, the support equipment. I do not know why it could not, and it's also at a location that is not readily accessible. I can imagine the Verizon trucks parked on Mesa trying to service this. It could be placed at the corner towards the fire station where the ground equipment could be put behind an existing wall that is already there. The city could even get revenue for leasing an area for the support equipment. It could be put closer to the clubhouse, since the proprietor is going to get the revenue from this. So I don't know that those alternatives have been considered, or even if on that fake eucalyptus tree would not serve the problem. And finally, I would mention that I saw in the lobby you have a letter from Barbara Venezia, who testifies that cell phone service is not perfect in Santa Ana Heights. And I would like to point out that this only serves Verizon customers. If their phone that is not working well as any other company, this is not going to help them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. We have a motion?
I move the action.
We have a second? All right, please vote.
With Councilmember Daigle recusing herself, the motion carries unanimously 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 14, please.
Mr. Mayor and council members, item number 14 involves aligning our municipal code with the new automated trash collection service for most residential homes in Newport Beach. I'm going to kind of summarize what the basic changes are, and I'll point out a couple of the ones that are, unless Tara has, go ahead and do that. Ask Tara Finnegan and Mike Pisani to help us out here. This is going to be an abbreviated presentation from what we would have done at study session today, at least with some of the changes.
Indeed. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. As we transition from city-provided manual trash service to CR&R-provided automated or semi-automated service, we need to make some updates to Chapter 6.04 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code. Primarily, we need to address some of the terminology, the types of containers allowed, who buys those containers, and container storage. The terminology is perhaps the most minor of the changes, but what staff essentially did was bring the language used in Chapter 6.04 in line with what we have in our agreement with CR&R. And Mike Pisani is here to talk some more about containers and container storage.
Mayor, members of the council, if you recall from the agreement we've entered with CR&R, moving to an automated system where CR&R will provide the carts in 3 different sizes, 35-gallon, 64-gallon, and 96-gallon. Also, residents are allowed to place extra trash out in sturdy trash bags in any limit they desire. When we did the 300 home visits, we found some issues with the size of the containers and some of the narrow side yards, utility, gas meter, water meter, hose bibs in the way on some walkways. It was always in our best interest to enable citizens to have larger containers, the 64 gallons, so they might only have to have 1 container as opposed to 3 35s. So what we propose in the revised Chapter 6.04 is to allow containers to be placed on the side of a structure. Currently, trash containers by the municipal code need to be stored beyond the corner of a building, so back off the alley. We feel that with the automated containers, lids attached to them all the time, it's a neater appearance and won't have the same aesthetic, better aesthetic issues than the previous trash containers did.
Do we feel that these are, hopefully, less varmint friendly? What we have in Corona Del Mar is people put out their trash cans, and some with lids, not detachable lids, and then raccoons, I'm assuming, something bigger than a raven comes and knocks it over. Are these going to be less prone to that? I know that they won't be as open to as ravens because we have some people who don't put lids on and the ravens just go crazy with it. But are these more stable or anything?
Yes, they're both more stable, and the lids, if people don't overload the containers, will stay down and solve a lot of the problems with the with animals. But by and large, a large portion is issue now is even if they have lids on their trash cans, as the trash cans get older, the lids don't fit, completely lock it down and cover it, so it allows different kind of animals to get inside.
Councilman Curry, do you have a question?
Yeah, so when we entered into this contract, we made a promise to the community that they could put anything out just like they do now, and we'll pick it up. So it says here they can put it out in a paper, in a plastic bag, and we'll take that just like we do today. If they put out a chair or a piece of furniture, we'll take that just as they do today?
Yes.
None of that's changed by any of this ordinance?
No, because it wasn't in the previous ordinance. It is in the contract that they'll pick that up.
All right, so we can assure the public today that this does absolutely nothing to change what they can, what's being picked up at their curb from what's currently possible under our existing operations.
Well, there is one aspect of it, Mr. Curry, that is a difference, and I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Today you can bundle up your green cuttings in a small bundle next to your carts and leave that out. What's proposed here is that if with larger carts and with sturdier carts, you can and should put those in your cart, in your green cuttings. Remember, we don't have a green waste program, so it's all commingled anyway. You can also put that in a sturdy bag, but leaving out your green waste in a bundle just tends to be messier, and our hope is to clean that up. I did want to point that out to you that that's a difference in this proposal, again, given larger, sturdier carts that can handle more green waste. So if you have concerns about that, please let us know. CR&R will pick it up either way, but we think this will be actually a tidier, less messy thing for the communities.
I support that that change, by the way. One of the things that we had hoped to accomplish with this is to improve the alleyscape, if you will, and the streetscape of our city, which I think is actually a genuine benefit of this new contract. One concern that I have, though, is that with the proposed change for people to just be able to put their cans in the alley, instead of on the side of their house, there will be some people that will just do that just because they can. And so this is a loosening of the ordinance. It's not just a matter of preserving what was going on before. It's a loosening of the ordinance. And I am a little concerned about that, actually. And I wonder if there's a way to at least attach a condition here that they need to demonstrate, a reason why they need to do that. There should be a demonstration of need to do that, in my view. And I probably wouldn't even try to define it any more than that. But otherwise, I do worry about it. I know in my neighborhood, some kids, they think it's pretty good sport to go down an alley and knock over trash cans. If they're out there all the time, they'll get knocked over more often. And so maybe it's not just kids, I'm not sure. But in any event, I'd like to at least have a basis in the ordinance to have a conversation with a homeowner that along the lines of demonstrating need to do that. I'd be curious whether there's any thought from other council members in that regard.
Councilwoman Gardner?
I believe the Corona Residents Association did one of their surveys, and it was mixed. Some of them like, no, don't do it, and others, yes. I have to put them there anyway, and it would be nice not to feel like I was breaking the law or something. So I don't know what we could do where we wouldn't have to go and visit all sorts of houses. But that's one question I have that I've never heard addressed is the placement for trash day. Does that change in any way? Are we supposed to put them in a certain way, or do they just get down and maneuver them and then get the machine to pick them up?
In alleyways, there'll be semi-automated collection. So they'll use the two-man trucks, very similar to what we do now, that instead of pulling out 35-gallon regular trash cans, they'll pull out these larger ones, and the trucks will have a bin lifter, so the workers on the truck won't lift them themselves. The bin lifter will dump it in a rear loader.
But there's not like some magic line that we have to...
No, it's still within 8 feet of the property line, similar to what city refuse rules have been. So we're letting the public know that where they put their cans now is going to be okay with CRNR.
Okay, thank you.
And when will this automation arrive at my doorstep?
Actually, the first part of the presentation was the presentation from this afternoon that we're going to potentially deliver next council meeting. Starting on March 31st, CRNR will take over all collection in the city. They will, between March 31st and June 12th, over 16 weeks, they will do about 300 homes a day, converting from regular collection to automated. By next week, there should be a map on our website showing each street and the dates are going to do the conversion.
So is it are we asking our residents to go to there, or are we going to notify the residents in some way?
Maybe we should do part of the presentation.
Right, again, going back to our missed study session presentation, we're going to do another large outreach, much like we did for cart ordering. We're going to send a letter from the city first, explaining the transition is coming, where they can see the map, but then we're also going to follow that up with sending a postcard to neighborhoods the week before their new carts are delivered. It's kind of a little reminder, and that also will hopefully trigger those residents that will be on vacation or out of town for a prolonged period to call CRNR and ask for their carts to be delivered later.
Councilman Petros had a question.
I know Councilman Curry brought this up, but I'm still really uncomfortable about the fact that there is something in our contract that's not reflected in our ordinances. And I would really feel a lot better if both of those spoke to the same item. If, according to this, if I did what I did this morning and put out a box, that would be in violation of this, and it very likely that it wouldn't have been picked up by the trash hauler. Is there a reason why we can't change Section 604090 to reflect what's in the contract?
No, I think we could do that, and maybe if as Councilmember Henn noted, maybe we could look at a feasibility issue for alleyway parking, and either, I don't know if we could do first reading again, or we'd have to go to second reading. That we want to get these going, these changes, but there isn't a gun to our head, and certainly not to the residents' head over enforcement. But so we could wait if we needed to. You have any thoughts on that, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we can come to consensus about what the new language would be, then we can go ahead and have first reading tonight. If you want us to take a look at it and present it to you for your consideration, then we can bring it back for first reading at the next meeting.
Procedurally, so we would act on this text tonight?
No, you could add in text to it tonight.
Just give us some guidance, and we'd incorporate it, and we'd bring it back in 2 weeks with new text and a new first reading.
Or first, okay.
Yeah. So I'm hearing with Councilmember Curry and Councilmember Petros some clarification to mirror what we can do now and what's in the contract, especially in regards to small, non-bag, non-cartable items, a chair, a table, for instance.
Boxes.
Mr. Petros's box, yes.
No.
All right. And with Mr. Henn on the...
Do we have to take our boxes over to his house to make it work?
I'm sure the people on his lane would really appreciate that. And then on the, in regards to storage of containers, Aaron and I were talking, you could probably say something where, and this is section 604150, you could say something where if you can't store it in the garage, trash enclosure, or side yard, then you can store it in the alleyway. So sort of a feasibility test. I think we could probably do that and enforce that appropriately.
So this is turned into direction to staff?
That's fine. That's what we like to
do. All right.
Any other comments from Mike or Tara? Okay.
All right. I would like to open up to public. Anybody from the public like to comment on this item? Item number 14.
Actually, while Mr. Mosher is walking up to the microphone, I did want to make an announcement earlier and just neglected. It's related to this. We had a presentation from Southern California Gas about the meters and these add-ons and whether or not it was going to create new problems with regard to the trash cans. And I've resolved my personal situation, which I think was representative of what others might encounter. And along the way, the gas company did tell me that if there is an issue created by their meter or their new meter configuration, they will remedy that at their cost, not the homeowners. And so that was not at all clear from the presentation the Southern California Gas person made, and I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that.
And we should include that in our written materials, especially in your neighborhood, Mr.
Yeah.
Henn. You're going to find that fairly common. Yeah.
Public comment?
Thank you, Mayor Hill and members of the council. My name is Jim Mosher. It is clear, as the city manager said, that the current code does not align with this new contract that you've made. And I'm glad to hear that you're not going to consider this the first reading, but are going to come back with something different at the next meeting that will be a new first reading, because this code here is really not ready. In connection with the study session presentation that never quite happened, there was a brochure in the lobby, which I think was also mailed to homeowners. I would point out it has a panel here for those who want an even bigger box than Councilman Petros. All you have to do is order a temporary container for your construction demolition. One might have the impression from that this is free or in our contract. I rather doubt that that's the case. I think CRNR is just one of many vendors from which you could get those. I'm not quite sure how that works with our new code. I would also point out that Deputy Director Pisani was mentioning that you could put out dirty waste in a bag. The brochure is clearly saying you have, even apparently people who do not have this recycling card have the option of putting out recyclables in a clear plastic bag. The entire question of recyclables and what the rule is about that and whether there's any punishment for putting stuff that you're not supposed to put in that card or what it's exactly reserved for is not even addressed in this new code at all. The code has also eliminated certain definitions of cuttings, garbage, and refuse that are used in other parts of our municipal code. It does not address the question of what rules operate in the parts of our city that are not served by this contract with CR&R, such as our poor stepchild of Santa Ana Heights, who have CR&R service but under different terms from the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. I don't know how our code aligns with that at all. In addition to the business about cuttings being removed, there also was a provision in the old code that allowed people to put out newspapers and magazines in neat little bundles by the curb, and they were picked up. That has been deleted. And then finally, as to the section about containers and what containers are allowable, I would point out that somebody has to do some rethinking of that. If you look at the new section 604090, it said that a legal container is one that meets one or more of the following requirements. So there's 4 things. Anything that meets any one of those is okay. The second of the 2 requirements is simply a container that will not exceed 150 pounds in weight. So although we've been heard that there's restrictions, apparently any kind of container, if I am reading this correctly, that does not exceed 150 pounds is one of the 4 options. Therefore, it qualifies. Therefore, it's a legal container. But I don't think that's what staff wants, so I think they're going to have to rethink that before the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any further public comments on this topic? Seeing none, bring it back to the council. Do we need a motion on this to direct staff? Getting one nod.
I guess just to bring it back with the recommended changes that we discussed tonight.
Do you have a motion as such?
Second.
All right. Please vote.
The motion to continue carries unanimously, 7-0.
Item number 15, Dolphin Deepwater Well Rehabilitation.
Good evening again, Mayor, council members. Dave Webb, Public Works Director. This is just an item we want to bring your attention, normally on the consent calendar, but due to the nature of it, it's a large dollar item. This is to award a contract to General Pump tonight to rehabilitate one of our 4 city wells, and also to give a small contract to Richard Slade for monitoring of that. And we'd be happy to do a staff report if you have any questions.
Second.
Any questions by staff, by council? I'd like to ask the public if anybody would like to comment on item number 15.
Thank you, Mayor Hill. I think by now you know that my name is Jim Mosier. I'm pleased to see that special attention is being called to these big ticket items. In this case, over $500,000. I don't recall that that was our policy in the past to do that in any uniform way. So I'm wondering if this is a new policy, and if so, what the dollar threshold will be that we see items on the regular agenda. And then second, from going to Councilwoman Gardner's water quality meetings, although I missed part of the middle of them, I should understand better how our deep water wells in Fountain Valley work. I'm just curious how the water we pump from Fountain Valley gets to us. Is there a dedicated pipeline that comes all the way from Fountain Valley to here? And wouldn't it be more environmentally friendly to use that water locally and kind of get a credit for it or something like that? Thank you.
I understand we use a new wireless system.
Many buckets.
Many buckets, yes. Is there anyone else in the public like to comment on this item? And I'll bring it back to the council. Please vote.
I believe we have dedicated water lines, do we
We
not?
do, and
Yeah.
sorry, the reason that the wells are in Fountain Valley is that's where the aquifer is. The aquifer is not under us in Newport, but we have rights to it.
This was an example, again, of looking into the future. We have a very diversified water supply compared to most cities. We're very fortunate.
The motion carries unanimously.
Item number 16, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hill. Again, Kim Brandt, Community Development Director. The agenda item that you have before you is the Newport dividend program, and this is actually a proposal of Mayor Hill, and I don't know if you would like to give an overview, but I would be happy at this time to go through the elements of the program, or if you want to make any comments, I'll certainly defer to you.
Why don't you quickly run through the elements, if you will, and then I will make some comments.
All right. The proposal that the City Council has before you this evening is a program that would temporarily waive building plan check, building construction permit fees, and other related city fees related to the remodels of existing single-family homes and existing duplexes. The proposed waiver program would limit the fee waiver to $1 million in improvement value per home. This program would not apply to fees that are collected by other agencies such as the Newport Mesa Unified School District or the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency. Staff is proposing that the time frame for this Newport dividend program would be March 12th, that's tomorrow morning, through December 12th of this year. Staff is estimating that the average savings per permit value would be approximately $1,200 in plan check and permit fees, and that's based on an estimated building valuation of $42,000. Overall, staff has indicated in the staff report that the decrease in revenue for the remainder of the year is approximately $1.7 million.
Thank you. So basically, this is an attempt to look at our future, our current financial situation, and our future short-term needs, and evaluating that at this point in time, we feel that we were adequately funded and that we wanted to do something that would be appropriate to give back to the community. Several alternatives were evaluated, and that which was looked to be of the best value to the total community would be to encourage residents to improve their individual home or their duplex, whether they occupied it or whether they owned it, but an incentive, if you will, to enhance the property. It is a temporary cost to the city by not collecting those fees, but it is something that would come back to the city eventually. It would come back in increased property taxes and increased stimulation to the economy. With every renovation, there's new flooring, there's new light fixtures. If you have a significant other, there's new furniture and other accoutrements that go with that, which employ contractors, real estate people, finance people, all the way through the professions that keep Orange County moving and shaking. So that's the purpose of it, and with that, I would open that up for council comments. Mr. Curry.
First of all, Mr. Mayor, let me congratulate you for this initiative. This has been done in other cities, and what it does is it spurs economic growth, it spurs neighborhood revitalization, and it enhances the property values for everyone who participates in it. That's how the taxes get higher, is because the investments people make in their properties make their homes worth more. And it makes our neighborhoods worth more, and it makes our neighborhoods look better. That's one of the things that keeps Newport Beach fresh, that keeps our community special and unique from our neighbors. And it's a great way of sharing the fact that we have been economically successful through this recession in building our reserves because we haven't used them for operating costs. So I think this is something that's going to be well appreciated by our community. It will spur people who might otherwise not have thought of making improvements to their home to make those improvements now, and will result in a better looking, higher valued, more successful community. So I congratulate you for this initiative.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gardner.
I look back to our general plan efforts, and the one issue that was completely divided, that there was no middle ground, was this idea of the building of a bigger home versus keeping the smaller home. The people who own the smaller homes, we're losing sunlight and everything. So that while there's a sentence that says it is recognized, there are members of the community who don't recognize it, who don't feel that just because their neighbor wants a bigger house that that's going to benefit. And they're not thinking of the property taxes. They're thinking of just their particular existence.
So I'm not sure why we should reward just a few people if we feel we have this. If we've got, and I think that's great, I'm all for giving back. If we feel like it, though, if we feel our fees, well, then let's just cut a percentage off all the fees. So everybody in the city that participates in anything gets a benefit. Or if we feel that we would lose about $1.7 million, let's put $1.7 million. I can think of all sorts of areas that need better landscaping, medians and that sort of thing, which would be that all of us would benefit from. This seems to be very narrow as far as who gets rewarded. So I would just like to see us do it differently.
Mr. Mayor, one of the ways I look at our finances is we have a stable set of revenues, and then we have a stable set of bills on a monthly basis, our payroll and so on. And then when we have a surplus and annually, then we have a reserve. And with our reserves, we use those to upgrade our infrastructure, modernize things, and really for the common good. And when you look at a fee, such as a permit fee, by law, it has to be connected to a cost. And so when somebody pays a fee of $25,000, someone I know just remodeled a home in the Port Streets, then that is directly connected to the inspector that comes out, the plan reviewer, and so on. So in effect, if they no longer pay those fees, the rest of us have to subsidize the costs, which is the inspector and the plan review. So I don't see where the common good is and where the costs are being shifted to the rest of us. So I think on this one, along the lines of Councilmember Gardner, is if there's a $1.7 million sort of available amount of money here, what benefits could be passed on to the community that are more, benefit more people. And so you take your $1.7 million, whether you do alley replacements or more trees or whatever. But I also see that this benefits a small number of people and unfortunately shifts the cost to the rest of us. I mean, the inspector's still got to get paid, still need gas for the cars, and that's really what this is doing, is shifting costs to the rest of us, that we're subsidizing this activity. So I agree with the mayor's idea of a dividend. I agree with the idea we have some extra funds that we can pass on to the community. I would just like to see it applied in terms of infrastructure improvements or something along those lines.
Any further council comments? All right, there's a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, public comments. Does anyone in the public like to comment on this?
Thank you, Mayor Hill, members of the council. My name is Jim Mosier. I agree with the two councilwomen who have spoken that if the city is finding itself collecting more money than it needs to operate and wants to give some of that money back, this is one idea, but there's many other ideas that would be more equitable than this. One of the most obvious would be to reduce property taxes for all property owners, although I'm afraid the arcane, completely opaque formula by which property taxes are now calculated with Councilman Curry's beloved Proposition 13 makes it very difficult for a city to return property taxes in any meaningful way. And if we're wanting to reduce these fees because the cost of the inspections and so forth, are we overcharging? That's why we have this extra money. Then I think we could have a more modest reduction over a longer period of time, many years, so that it would benefit more people. And finally, the staff report actually says 1.77, which I would round to 1.8 million. And if we're trying to give 1.8 million back to the citizens of Newport Beach, we have something like 60,000 registered voters, and not to be too flip about it, we could just send each of them a check for $30 in an envelope that says vote for Hill. And I think that would accomplish what we're trying to accomplish here. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. That's the first good suggestion I've heard from Jim all night.
Mr. Mayor, since Mr. Mosier did bring it up, I would say that yes, Proposition 13 is beloved. I think it's beloved by just about everybody who is a homeowner in this city, and I certainly am proud of it. Property taxes are technically collected by the county, administered by the state, so we could not really cut the city's portion that sits statutorily in Sacramento. that comes to us as a city. So that would not be a viable idea. But to be assured of the fact that I do believe everybody who's listening, who's a homeowner, supports and appreciates the value and protections that they get from Proposition 13. Thank you, Jim.
Any,
Mr. Mayor? Yeah. I appreciate the arguments about it being a fairly narrow segment. I will say, though, as it relates to my district, there's a fair amount of housing stock in my district that certainly could benefit from some remodel and improvement, and so I'm particularly hopeful that this initiative, if passed, will help in that regard, especially in my district. So, thank you. Mr.
any
Mayor?
further public comment on this item? If not, then I'll bring it back to the council for comment.
Mr. Mayor, I'm really wrestling with this. When you brought this forward at the mayor's dinner, I thought that this was a great idea, and I've seen it done in other communities. I do really appreciate the notion of a dividend and providing back to the city. I'm persuaded, though, by the narrow margin that this will affect, and I'm wondering, is there anything else that can affect a broader population of Newport Beach residents? We're talking about building fees. What about recreation activities? What about infrastructure? What about landscaping? Something that could go broader than just single-family homeowners, who are a great segment, and does have a multiplier effect. I understand that. It would just be more palatable to me if I could see that this reached a much broader population.
Any further council comment?
Well, I would just point out we're spending $60 million on infrastructure this year, so you can call that the Newport dividend too, and I think be confident that we're fully investing in all the infrastructure projects that we can build as fast as we can build them.
I think the other aspect, and we actually did research all these other types of things, and I did with staff, and you can take the pie and divide it so thin that it's of no value to anyone. And it's kind of like giving yourself a dividend that all you did was go out and buy another six-pack of beer. So that doesn't do anything to spur the economy. And so that's where we ended up at this juncture. So any further council comment? Then I would ask you to vote.
With council members Gardner and Daigle voting no, the motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. Item number 17, Balboa Village Theater.
Mr. Mayor, this next item is a update a couple of hours later from your study session presentation. Mr. Henn, at the conclusion of that, had a list of things, sorry, this is about the Balboa Theater, had a list of things that he thought should be included if the council were to go forward with what he called an approval in concept. We have written those down. I'd read those back to you. They'd go into the record if indeed you were inclined to approve this. So with that, I'll ask you if you need more information from us or from the applicant, or sorry, from Mr. Beasley or Mr. Heck, because they're in the audience.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Actually, I would like to re-articulate that in the form of a motion to approve in concept moving forward with the proposal from the Balboa Theater Foundation for the city to execute a rehabilitation of the building at its cost of approximately $2 million, to be paired with the foundation raising $2 million of private money to be used for the operation of the facility under a lease with the city for a performing arts venue. That approval in concept would be conditioned upon the $2 million being raised and in the bank, unencumbered, completion of due diligence on the cost estimate to the city, which would be supported by the foundation obtaining preliminary plans and preliminary cost estimates as rapidly as possible for the city to review and vet. for city staff to review and vet. Number 3, the provision of a professionally written business plan, a full scope business plan, that council would review, and that would be subject to approval of council in its discretion as to the achievability and feasibility of the offering. Number 4, a renegotiated lease with appropriate operational covenants. And number 5, in deference to Council Member Daigle's concern, and actually this was a provision in the first iteration of this at the last council study, as I recollected, and that would be for the city to have a right to name up to 2 board members to the foundation board. We didn't ask, how does that last item? I recognize that you don't have the ability to commit to that because you haven't filled out your board yet, but that was in the last time around, and I presume that would not be a big problem for you. Okay, so those 5 items. So those items would be reviewed and vetted by council, and in the event council found them acceptable in form and content, would approve at a later time following the raising of the money moving forward.
Can I make a couple of suggestions, Councilman Henn?
Pardon?
Can I make a couple of suggestions, 2 items to add to your list?
Sure.
One, I mentioned the professional peer review. I don't think there's anyone here that's qualified to review this this study.
Actually,
and then the second one would be to put some kind of time limit on it. I mean, is this going to go on forever? Or, I don't know what a reasonable time period is, but put some kind of a time period on it.
all right, with regard to the peer review, I'll amend my motion to include that. We actually had intended to do that last time around too, and I believe you've got some people identified that would be easily ready to do that once the business plan is available. And I would suggest, I'm okay with the time limit too, I would suggest a time limit of 6 months to raise the money. Why don't you come to the podium?
Yeah, the folks at home aren't able to hear folks in the audience unless they're at the mic. Thanks.
I think the meter should start running when the council says, yes, let's do it.
Well,
because right now it's going to take us time to get Fisher and Fosbach to go ahead and give us
oh, no, the approval in concept would be granted subject to these conditions tonight.
Uh-huh.
And all we're asking is that you provide some diligence information as soon as you're able to get it, provide that to staff.
Yeah,
that doesn't delay anything.
I would.
When does the meter start running on the 6 months?
I would think that 6 months would be an awful tight time frame. I would.
Why don't we say to the end of the
That's fine.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So to the end of the calendar year.
You'd have between now and December 31 to raise the $2 million.
Got it.
Well, to raise the money and satisfy the conditions, yes.
Correct, yes.
Right.
That'll give us enough time to do what's necessary to satisfy the council and then go forward with our fundraising, yes.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Any further council comments before we go to...
Wait, I don't think we have a clear understanding here. You get the conceptual approval tonight, Dr. Hecht.
Correct.
And you have until the end of the calendar year to raise $2 million.
Of course.
Do the business plan.
Correct.
And so it's not...
It's not sequential.
Yeah, but...
It's parallel.
By December, there's $2 million in the bank.
You got it.
Okay.
All right. Any further council comments? I'd like to open the public hearing, then anybody in the public like to speak on this?
Mayor Hill and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I thought we heard this afternoon that there was going to be a resolution prepared that made it really clear in writing exactly what you are approving here? City manager has said that it's kind of written down.
No, we don't have a resolution written, Mr. Mosier.
We have a motion that will be very clear and in writing recorded,
Yes.
what's being approved.
I think it would be very wise, as Councilman Selich said, after 18 years, I don't know what the rush is that you have to make this commitment this night. Why not wait for 2 weeks until you have that resolution written down, specifying exactly what you want to do? This seems to be more than just putting your toe in the water. It seems to be a definite commitment. If this group indeed is, by December 31st, able to raise $2 million, it's going to be very hard then to go back on your promise to give them $2 million, even if you're not happy with all the other details. Because they're going to say it was because of your promise that they raised that money. And if you don't go forward with your promise, I don't know what they're going to do with the $2 million. Are they somehow going to return that to all the donors or work it out? I don't know. Is that part of your agreement that they're going to do that? I thought Councilman Selich made excellent points this afternoon that this is no longer a historic building. It may not be the best place in Newport Beach for this kind of activity. Mayor, it was repeatedly said by this group and by a couple of the council members that there is no risk involved here. If the commitment becomes final and we do put in our $2 million, if we do renovate the building and it fails, there's no risk because we were told the dirt value is $3 million. Well, I would submit that the $2 million has been lost if the thing fails, because we could sell it today, presumably, just for that $3 million. Anything else we put in is at risk. Thank you.
Any further comments, public comments? Comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council.
I had one question. So the foundation is going to pursue and complete those activities. So let's say they submit a business plan, for example. In order to proceed to approve it, though, the business plan would have to be deemed acceptable by a majority of the council. It's not just like because you do these things, you're going to get $2 million.
Correct.
Yeah,
You have to do
that's
things to the
absolutely right.
satisfaction of the council.
Council will have to be satisfied that the business plan represents an appropriate, achievable undertaking.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Through a peer review, through a... Is there anyone on the council that's unclear about what the motion is?
I just have a couple of comments on it. I think first of all that if there's any of the fundraising needs to make it clear that the council approval is conditional, so that people aren't making contributions thinking that the council has unequivocally approved this, number one. And the second thing, in response to Mr. Mosier's comments, if the business plan and the other aspects of this don't pass muster, I have no problem in voting against it at the appropriate time. So it really is a matter of bringing this information to us in a professional manner that we can logically and clearly analyze it.
We intend to publish in the Indy and by emails and by mail the resolution as passed by the council, so there could be no misunderstanding. And we will adhere to each of the provisions.
Thank you. All right. Please vote.
With Councilmember Gardner voting no, the motion carries 6-1.
Item number 18, please. Visit Newport Beach and NB TV.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor and Council. And we provided a fairly detailed staff report on this item as to how we arrived at this proposal tonight. So I'm just going to very briefly summarize our goals with the proposed agreement, why we choosing to partner with Newport Beach and Company, and also some of the terms of the agreement for you. We heard from several citizens that they would like to see some more compelling content on NBTV. We would like to increase production values, and we also would like to increase the viewership. All of this, of course, while containing costs and hopefully sparing some staff time in the process. When we started talking with Newport Beach and Company, we realized we could share some resources and some of the content we're producing. They do have excellent in-house creative staff and marketing staff that can not only help us develop good programming, they can help us promote the channel better. And they also have agreed to hire a contractor that would help manage the station and the operations. So again, alleviate some staff time that we put into NBTV. The proposed terms of the agreement, we're asking the council to consider $150,000 a year, which is about $25,000 more than we currently spend on NBTV each year. We're looking for a 2-year term of the agreement to give them a chance to get up and get started and to try some of their new ideas on the channel. And then with 2 one-year renewal options, we have some guidelines we've put before you to consider tonight that would help them to expand the programming while still preserving our government channel requirements. And we would still retain ownership of all of the NBTV equipment. We'd also own the video at the city, but they of course, Newport Beach and Company, would be allowed to use it for their marketing purposes as well. And with that, Dave, did you have anything to add?
I did before taking questions. We wanted to, and it's been a long time bringing this to you, and in our enthusiasm to bring this to you on Thursday, we rethought about this over the weekend. We do think it'd be appropriate to bring a final agreement to you as a body rather than needing to authorize me to sign that. I'm fine with that. I don't think there's a problem in waiting a couple weeks, and your guidance tonight would be helpful in that regard.
All right, with that, any questions from the council?
I have several. One of my first concerns is just, we talk about sparing staff time, but I see the city manager or his appointee is reviewing a lot of stuff. Are we comfortable that that's really going to be feasible as far as all of the programming that is supposedly going to be reviewed? That's my first question. My second question, on page 5 of the objectives, Number 2, live programs, live coverage of City Council may be carried gavel to gavel with or without editing. Ooh, I really don't like the idea of somebody else editing, and who knows how it could be edited as far as what took place at a council meeting. It's not that we're so fascinating, but still, it should be verbatim if people are looking at it, I would think. So I have some questions about that. The bulletin board procedure, it talks about committees. Now, we do have policies about how committees can communicate, but there's no reference to that in here. So if I were reading it and I were on a committee, I think, oh, I'm going to create my own PSA. Now, of course, the city manager then will review it, but I think we might want to clarify that. And on the final page, it talks about anybody that's doing anything, they have to sign an indemnity agreement. Well, I can sign an indemnity agreement, but are we going to do any research into the fact that the person actually can indemnify us? I don't know whether that's standard. The same with looking into some of these organizations that maybe, I mean, some of them are, we know, Spawn and those might want to put something up there, but then we have the Friends of Joe Blow that say they're a nonprofit. Will we be doing anything in there, or is that just one person who suddenly become a nonprofit? So what kind of controls do we have here? It seems a little bit loosey-goosey.
All right, I would take it that those are all suggestions to staff as they develop the final agreement. All right. Further council comments, Councilwoman Daigle.
Along with a couple of other members of the council, I was at the Toshiba breakfast this morning, and they announced that they're going to sponsor Toshiba is going to sponsor the tournament for 3 more years, and you know, events like that, I think we could do even more. The city could play a more active role in supporting that in the community. I have a couple points. The first is, can you explain the sponsorship component of that? What does that mean? If someone sponsors a show, who gets the revenue? How are sponsorships solicited? How does that work? I'd be interested in knowing that.
Visit Newport Beach would be responsible for, Newport Beach and Company would be responsible for obtaining sponsorships. It's more of an underwriting, much like you would see on PBS, and that money would go back into the program itself to help us increase production values, more editing, perhaps some more graphics features like that we want to put into the programming.
Okay, and then the other point is a suggestion. Cable has a whole sort of body of law with it, and I know Rutan and Tucker has an expert, Jeff Melching. So to make sure we get all this stuff right with PEG, maybe in the next few weeks we can also have him take a look at it, so we comply with the FCC and all that.
Yeah, I actually don't think that would be necessary in this instance. I mean, the laws are pretty straightforward, and I think we've fully covered them. So I don't think it would be necessary to bring in an outside counsel in this matter.
Yeah, I enthusiastically support this proposal. I think we will have the underwriting or the guidelines, programming guidelines that are in there, I thought were very thoroughly enumerated and provide reasonable safeguards for the public content purpose that we're working on here, and against abuse on the basis of special benefit to commercial interests or any other such thing. So I'm very confident that we'll work all of that out. I do see a significant public governance benefit to this, though, to the extent that Newport Beach and Company is able to structure programming and manage the programming in a way that makes the viewership of this channel more actively viewed by a larger number of people in our community, and visitors for that matter. I think it raises the odds that the more mundane content about city programs, council meetings, other sorts of things where we constantly strive to increase public awareness of those kinds of issues, I think that public awareness will come along, will improve, and that we will get better transparency and communication of city activities and programs and things that are affecting our citizens. And so I really look forward to that benefit here. And I think it's one of the principal benefits of moving this idea forward.
Further council comment? I'd like to open this up to the public. Anyone from the public would like to comment on item number 18?
Do we want to, while we're waiting for someone to come up, do we want just a motion then to continue it? Or do you want us just to vote to approve it with corrections? Or?
Well, it would be helpful if you, in a sense, verbally gave us the direction that what we're proposing is sound
In
and the
concept.
term in concept, and then continue the actual. We'll return that agreement to you, the actual agreement to you at a future meeting. Hopefully,
Well, then I would move that we approve it in concept pending the return of a new agreement.
Any further discussion by the council? All right, then I'm going to open up to the public. Anyone from the public like to make comment on item number 18? Perfect record.
Mayor Hill and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. Our TV station may not be very much watched, but this seems to be a big change. And I would have thought this would have deserved a study session review to bring yourselves and all of us up to speed on how government access channels work, what our agreements are with the current franchisees we have, and what commitments we may have in those franchises which are not attached here. And I'm also a little surprised, living as we do on the outskirts, what I thought was the media and entertainment capital of the world, up in Los Angeles, that there would not be any number of firms besides Newport Beach and Company that would have ideas, thoughts, and even greater competence in increasing the viewership of this station. And I thought governments normally put out a request for proposals so we could see ideas for what we might do, and I don't know why we have not done that here. When this idea was briefly mentioned many months ago, Councilwoman Gardner was mentioning the need or desirability of showing more than just city council meetings so that a wider part of the public can see them. They may not watch, but other communities around here broadcast planning commission meetings, other committee meetings. The proposed scope of work seems to be essentially ruling that out. It's a commitment to city council meetings, pick a pet, and Speak Up Newport. I don't know why that one community organization would be singled out, because over the years there might be others that would show up equally relevant. It has an actual limit on the city production hours, and unlike Councilwoman Daigle, I'm quite uncertain how this sponsorship business would work. I assume Visit Newport Beach and Company, or Visit Newport Beach, whichever it is very interested in the sponsorships, because I assume people give money for that, and they would be there. You can have 360 seconds, 6 continuous minutes of sponsorships at 60 seconds each, which apparently they will set a fee for how much they collect with that, and it's not clear in anything I see here what they do with that money or how they use it. Thank you.
Just a comment, Mayor Hill.
Councilwoman Gardner?
Live programs, live coverage of City Council and designated City Commission board and committee meetings. So it's certainly, when we had our study session, when Visit Newport first came forward with some suggestions, and we went back and forth and said, no, we want more of this or less of that. One of the things that was stressed was that we wanted an opportunity to show others. Maybe you would only see one Arts Commission meeting a year, but at least people would be exposed to that. And that is in here. So it's not limited. It's actually going to be expanding the coverage. That was page 5, number 2.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm looking at the proposed scope of work, which does not include
Thank you,
that.
Jim. Any further public comment on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the council. Please vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Motion for reconsideration.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Any motion for reconsideration? Seeing none, we stand, we adjourn to continuation of the closed door session. Closed session, sorry. We're going to close the door too.